Political violence fill your city. Yeah. Don't involve Rasta in your say. Rasta don't work for no CIA. Rat race. Rat race. Rat race. Yeah. Rat race. I'm saying, when you think it's peace and safety, a sudden destruction, collective security for surety, yeah. Don't forget your history, know your destiny. In the abundance of water, the food is thirsty. Rat race, rat race, rat race, rat race. Oh, it's a disgrace to see the human race in a rat race. Yeah. Rat race. You got a horse race, you got a dog race, you got the human race. But this is a rat race.
Welcome back. David Penn here, the Professor Penn podcast. It's Tuesday night, the 16th of July, 2024. This is episode number 129, the UNIPARTY. UNIPARTY. We started out with a very appropriate Bob Marley song from his catalog of anti-war and pro-peace and pro-faith music, Rat Race. And I thought about that because of the line, political violence will fill your cities. Yeehaw. Yaman. Political violence is filling our cities, and I don't need to add to the cacophony of commentary on the President Trump assassination attempt, although we're going to have to walk around it because it's so potent. And I thought about that line about political violence and the rat race that we're in, and what happens to a human being as they grow up in the rat race. It's very sad. It's very sad. I'm just saddened by it, and everybody's going to have their own response. I'm just honest about my own. And I thought about what I was going to say today for 3 or 4 days. I've been thinking about it, and I just have to speak from my own experience, particularly since I have so many new observers now that like to cut up my bits and put them on uh, the internet to try to discredit me, which is great. That's actually an endorsement of what I'm doing. It means that I've got some people triggered. I'm living in their head, and that's fine because they're certainly not living in my head. I've realized in doing politics uh, something that I really have kept away from myself. I've had a lot of experiences. I've said in the podcast, I've had a lot of very unique human experiences, and it's brought me into contact with really intense evil that had to be confronted in a way that was actually violent. And I was always able to compartmentalize that. And so those experiences, which was when I was a young man, those experiences where I dealt with the core of evil, uh, I just forgot about it. I just went along my business. I thought, well, that's isolated. That's an isolated group of wackos, and thank God they've been removed from the field of play. And that's an isolated group. Thank God they're removed from the field of play. But the pervasiveness of the evil, the pervasiveness of the uh, next level, which is the misunderstanding of it, well, politics is really uh, this last few years really brought this around for me where I recognized that walking around right with us, because, the groups that I was associated with that were working against um, other groups that were really bad people, um, it wasn't generalized. I viewed it as being very specific, like a police action. So I didn't generalize and go, well, everybody's. But now I realize it's everybody. It's me. It's you. It's the evil that we carry in our own hearts that we don't deal with that create conditions and energies that we wake up and there's a lone gunman. And I was talking, good morning, Tanner.
Good morning, David.
Tanner and I were talking about this before we came on because talking about this is such an awesome responsibility for me. Uh, and I'm going to say things and they're going to get cut up and put on the internet maybe. And you know what? I don't care because we're in a period of change. So when we're changing, we don't have the traditional markers of what's right, what's wrong, what do we say, what do we not say. We're changing as a culture so rapidly, and I have to have the courage, and I do have the courage to do uh, the best I can to articulate my experience, and I hope it has a value to you, particularly to start out today's podcast about assassination. You know, Bob Marley was a tremendous musician, and his music was really transformative for a generation of people. And while the boomers, which people like me, were exposed to Bob Marley, and most of us forgot it, I did not. That's why I play it constantly. And in Jamaica, where Bob Marley had his center, where he lived and where he practiced and recorded, his music actually became part of the political process on the island of Jamaica, which was a former colony. And as a former colony, the process of decolonization is very destabilizing because there's a power vacuum. And what fills that power? Because when the colonizer leaves and takes with them their colonial enterprise, what's left is the indigenous people and the people that were imported as slaves, and they might not necessarily get along. And then you have the former slave masters that still live there, and the money that was garnered by the slave enterprise. And that's quite a potent mix of people that are trying to reestablish some kind of political community that functions. So when Bob Marley was singing Rat Race, for example, Jamaica was on edge. And on December 3rd, 1976, 7 armed men raided the residence of Bob Marley and shot the place up. It was 2 days before he was going to participate in a big peace concert in an attempt to quell the political violence that had filled the cities of Jamaica, a la the song Rat Race. He was talking about an existential reality he was living in, and he was sad about it. You know, we got the horse race, we got the dog race, we got the human race. Oh, it's a rat race. I mean, this is not a happy lyric to compare human experience to the experience of rats. That's quite revealing about where Bob Marley, where his lens of description was. He was looking out and he was saying, well, every place is violence. Every place is violence. So he was caught up in this. He was working towards peace. His message was one of spreading faith, of spreading peace, of spreading community, of spreading treat your neighbor as you would like to be treated. It's all throughout his poetry, which he then composed music for his poetry. Still great today. But 2 days before that, what was called the Smile Concert, 7 armed men. His wife Rita was shot in the head in the driveway. Marley was shot in the chest and the arm. His manager Don Taylor was shot in the legs and the torso. A band employee, Lewis Griffiths, took a bullet to the torso, and no one died, which was a miracle. Miracles happen. Yes, if somebody wants to cut this up, yes, it's a miracle when, gunmen invade someone's house and shoot everybody that nobody's died. Now, you could say it's bad shooting. Everyone is free to interpret what they see under our Constitution with their own eyes and their own ears. I think it's miraculous that Bob Marley didn't die in this raid. And people believed that Bob Marley was supporting a politician named Michael Manley. And Michael Manley was the head of what was called the People's National Party, the PNP. It was an overtly socialist, communist people's movement that was there filling that void in that post-colonial period. When you imagine you're coming out of colonialization, that's as far from a people's movement as you can get. The people are property in a colonized environment. So you set the people free, hey, they're pissed. So he was supporting tacitly the PNP. This assassination attempt was allegedly organized by the JLP, the Jamaican Labor Party. Interesting, the name. It was not a labor party. It was run by a man named Edward Siega, and this party encapsulated and contained and advanced the interests of the moneyed class of Jamaica. And it's much like the Kennedy assassination or this event we just witnessed. We have eyes, we can see. I have eyes, I can see. I have my own opinions about what I see in 1963. I have my eyes about what I can see in 1976. And this is right out of Wikipedia. I'm not making this up. Timothy White, in his Marley biography, claimed that information he received from the JLP and PNP officials, as well as from U.S. law enforcement officials, led him to believe and write that Carl Mitchell, a Jamaican Labor Party gunman, was contracted by the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States to organize the Marley shooting, and that Lester Koch, also known as Jim Brown, led the assassins to Hope Road. And so the implication on Wikipedia, based on the Marley biographer and the people that have researched it, was that the Central Intelligence Agency funded, organized, and paid for the attempt on Bob Marley's life. There's a counter narrative. I wasn't there. I don't know. So my own personal response, in the absence of verifiable facts for myself, and I'm sharing this is what I do. I look at both sides. I have my own opinion, and I mostly keep it to myself because I can't prove it. If I can't prove it, I don't want to, contribute to human beings becoming captured by narratives, because the narrative that there's a conspiracy on either side is very divisive. So right away with this assassination attempt on President Trump, we've already got two camps. Tanner, do you see the camps that are out there from the
Yeah.
X? You see the different
The
camps?
the camps already existed. They just have different flags to wave now, I guess.
Right, they've got a new narrative to play with,
Yeah.
right? So there's nothing being done to bind the wound. In fact, the wound, the assassination attempt, be it a conspiracy or a lone gunman, we're going to talk about the lone gunman. It really, it's just further exacerbating a divide of self-hatred and community hatred, intra-community hatred, which prevents the organization of our society along lines of peace. And that's, sometimes you get to those places. We're in one of those places, and That's why I'm picking my words. I'm not picking my words. I'm trying not to screw up the words that I'm picking because the division is what I'm most concerned about. And for those of you that have been watching the podcast, you know that that is a great concern, and we work on it all the time. How can we reorganize our country and rebalance our country so that the search for truth regains its footing and we just lower the emphasis on a pure technical, pure scientific approach to life? And I say this as a prelude to talking about the lone gunman. Lone gunman. Lone? Okay, lone gun. What does that mean? That means there's no conspiracy of people that conspired with the gunman to assassinate the target. But that gunman's not really alone. And I go back to something I've said several times. We have what we can see ourselves, hear ourselves, feel ourselves, taste ourselves, our senses. There is a body of knowledge we gain through our own sensorial experience. And then there's another body of knowledge we gain by using scientific instruments which extend our sensorial capacity. But there's another body of knowledge that we know as human beings is out there that is infinite and we don't understand it at all. And you don't have to edit this out because we see it on the bumper sticker of cars. We account for this in our popular culture. Shit happens. We don't know why it happens. It happens. Like, why did President Trump turn his head? And instead of we watching his head blown off his shoulders, his ear was injured. Why did, and then I'm on X. There's people saying it was staged, right? You
Yeah,
saw that.
I've heard a lot of people explaining that it is an inside job from Trump's team as a publicity stunt to better cement his candidacy. I don't know. There's a lot I've seen a lot of talk of people saying that it was an inside job.
Narratives.
Yeah.
The narratives, there's going to be was conspiracy. There's going to be was a lone gunman, and then there's going to be was conspiracy of the Trump camp to aggrandize his candidacy. And of course, there's a lot of people that believe God intervened. I mean, so now we've got a microcosm here of the macrocosm. We got a conspiracy theory, we got a lone gunman theory, we got another conspiracy theory, and then we got the supernatural. It's all right here. Again, in the absence of verifiable facts, I just want to organize my community along the lines of things that I know. Like, I want to love my neighbor as I wish to be loved. So let's just talk about the lone gunman because there's been lone gunmen. Okay, they exist. Like John Hinckley, who tried to kill President Reagan 2 months after President Reagan assumed the presidency. And Hinckley was a mentally ill man, a schizophrenic, who allegedly tried to kill President Reagan because he was trying to impress an actress named Jodie Foster, which seems kind of crazy, right? Although I remember the guy that was training the group that I was in, after a long weekend of being out in the in the woods training, going to the bar afterwards and having a beer. Why are you guys doing this? And it was a pretty gnarly group of dudes. And this guy's saying, I want to defend my country, and this guy's saying, I want to go into combat and I want to prove myself in combat. And everybody had a reason. Everybody had a reason. And the senior looked at everybody and said, "Yeah, you're all just lying. You're all doing it because you want to get girls." So the Hinckley doing it to impress a girl, shooting at a president, there was some sanity in that, or some honesty, which doesn't mean he's not a schizophrenic, because this is what I want to get to on the lone gunman part. Uh, there's no lone gunmans. There aren't any. And I'm not saying that everything's a conspiracy. I'm saying we're all in this soup pot, this hyper inflammatory, this political rhetoric without limit soup pot, this stew, which is affecting every person. I'm on X. People hate me. They don't even know me. And I look at the vitriol and I think to myself, man, there's been people that I've really been real combat with. I never hated them like that. That kind of hatred I've never reached before. It's just coming to me, and I'm a baby in this game, and people hate me. And I look at it and I go, wow, where did that come from? It couldn't come from me because number one, I don't know them. Number two, really, I'm here to talk about love and love your neighbor as you wish to be loved in the search for truth. So if they're hating me, they're hating that. Okay, that's something to bookmark and come back to. But these lone gunmen, if it's Gitto that we were talking about on the last podcast who assassinated President Garfield, uh, there's no evidence that there was a conspiracy with Gitto. He was a disappointed wannabe diplomat who took revenge on a human being that he thought had slighted him, an issue of honor. So there's all kinds of issues that impact these people that go over the edge. The people that go in and shoot up grocery stores and churches or shoot their next door neighbor or the gang fighting that's going on. We're living in a culture that has removed the guardrails that encourage people not to kill each other. We had a ancient tradition that that's not good. And we have the presumption, the judgment that human beings are violent animals and that this violence will play itself out through murder and mayhem. Therefore, we need a security state and security architectures and legal structures to control the violent nature of man. Well, there I go. I'm choking up because I'm going to say something that probably get clipped up and, label me as a crazy person. Bonkers, as I was just recently labeled. Bonkers. I don't believe that judgment anymore. I certainly know where it comes from, and I certainly have believed it at different times in my life, or not believed it. I really never internalized it. But, people say, yeah, human beings are violent. You just go on by instead of looking at them and saying, why do you say that? Where does that judgment come from? Who does that judgment serve? Why are we believing that we're violent so that we hate ourselves? Who taught us that? Is that an observation of the natural world? Or is that an observation of the natural world then compounded with a judgment to make sure that we never evolve past it? And where's all the money in the violence? There's no money in peace, okay? So because I know what the scam is here, the scam is if we were at peace individually, our well-being would skyrocket. So all of our cultural mechanisms for making money, that would be the military-industrial complex and the medical-industrial complex, those two agencies that take up about $4 trillion of our budget every year, $4 trillion, which would be like 2,500 miles into space, $100 bills stacked up, 2,500 miles into space every year to support the military-industrial complex and the medical-industrial complex because we hold the judgment that one race is superior and another is inferior. That's really what it is. That's what it is. That's what it is. And we have this 5,000-year tradition. All its paths are paths of peace. Love your neighbor as you wish to be loved. And what we're doing is we're taking that out of our life. We're removing the antidote to whatever that set of judgments were up until 2,000 years ago. This antidote came, this reconciliation came, this redemptive philosophy came. Redemptive on an individual sense And then if we're all redeemed, it's redemptive collectively. Our culture, our secular humanist culture, is overthrowing the process that gave us a chance to remove those judgments. It could give us a new set of judgments. Love your neighbor as you wish to be loved. I started talking to my mom again. I've said my mom won't talk to me. And I was praying one morning, and there's a part where I pray and I meditate because the prayers I read are rituals, like playing scales on the violin or on the piano. You play those scales if you're learning a musical instrument so that you have musical proficiency with your axe so you can play. But that is the predicate for actually playing jazz or playing classical music. You got to have the chops. William knows. You got to have chops. You got to have chops. No chops, no music. So prayer is the same way. And prayerful study, you're developing the chops, and then you sit there and you meditate. And when I was meditating, call your mom. My mom's getting real old, and my mom told me she never wanted to talk to me again, and I generally let people disown me when they want to. It happens from time to time. People look at me and say, I never want to talk to you again. And I always say to them, okay, because that's their free will. And my mother doesn't want to talk to me because I'm in this nationalist movement, and my mother is an unrepentant globalist. And of course, I called my mom. First conversation went good. Second conversation, 2 hours of politics, because that's what we do around the campfire in the Penn family, which, by the way, my mom has COVID, and 2 people in my office have COVID, and somebody in the street, everybody's got COVID. Are you noticing everybody's getting COVID again now?
Yeah, I noticed there was a little bit of a yeah. I've
Surge,
known
right?
some people that have been getting it.
Crazy. It's not gone. It's just around, hanging around, just hanging around. Anyhow, my mom and I talked, and uh, it came because I had meditated, and when I meditate, time to meditate, right? I'm praying, and my mother's old, and it really doesn't matter that she doesn't want to talk to me. It's my job to be there for her, to try to let her speak. I'm resolved. I know she's not, because when you start cutting off your kids, it's not good. And we talked about all these issues. And in the middle of it, she asked me, are you Jewish? Are you Jewish? Which is something we're going to talk about today. But my point is that she is a secular humanist. And she also said in the conversation that she believes in a moral universe that can exist without the traditional that undergirded our culture for 700 years. She staked her career on the post-World War II Democrat liberal order that posited that nationalism and the intensity of belief that comes through faith is bad. We have to replace it with a new philosophical framework that removes the moral universe from its religious underpinnings, because that leads to violence. These people were well-intentioned. But it's a failed experiment. And why do we know it's a failed experiment? Because it failed. It failed. Now, we got a lot of conservatives. Now I'm watching this. Another thing. People have a hard time giving up the ghost, right? My mother said, I'm not giving it up. I'm 85 years old. I'm not giving it up. I'm not. I'm riding this ship right into the drink. And I'm looking online because X is great. It's a battle space. And let me ask all of you, please, please, follow Free People on X. And for those of you who are doing it, I want to give a special shout out to Gabriel. Gabriel, thank you. There are people in this audience that see me being attacked by really they're not good people. And I try not, I don't judge until I'm sure. Judge not lest you be judged. But, judging like I judge eating arsenic is not going to be good for me. It's going to kill me. Okay, that's a judgment. It's an accurate and true judgment. There are people right now on X that are existing solely and only to destroy things because they hate themselves. And they hate themselves intensely. And they lie intensely about who they are, what they believe, what their goals are. They will say anything to achieve what their goals are, which no point in getting into the weeds that far. And then I got people in this audience like Gabriel that see that, and there's others. Thomas. I mean, there's so many people. I mean, I'm all these names are banging through my mind. I can't thank every one of you, but there's more and more of you. Naomi, there's so many. Susan, there's Kim. There's so many people that are realizing that that is a battle space, a place where ideas are actually worked on, coming in and supporting the movement and reposting and retweeting and making your lists of 20 people and actually doing it because we're going to do it, right? It's going to be us or it's not going to happen. And in my, I, I realize that there are people like my mother who believe in a moral universe that's divorced from religion because they viewed religion and nationalism as the cause of murder and death. And my mother wants to believe that that framework is out there, and she's an attorney and she's an ethical person. She's just wrong. It didn't work. And it's not going to work because you can't expect a tree to live if you cut it off from its roots that nourishes it. Just doesn't work. It was an experiment born of the post-World War II experience. And very similarly, there's all these conservatives. I won't even be rude about it. I'll just leave it as and they're looking at the Republican Party and they're going, what happened? What happened? Well, there's a couple of different elements that are going on here. One is they're bringing in people like Amber Rose, who has a background as a leftist, and she is a sexy woman who has used her sexual characteristics to advance her career. And now she stood up in a quite chaste fashion in front of the world last night at the party on stage, and she spoke eloquently about her conversion to becoming a conservative. Basically, that's what she was saying. And the heads of the conservatives are just blowing up. Why are we doing this? So that we just talk to ourselves in a circle jerk? The whole point of politics is to minister to our community and to bring people into the movement. And I realize that you conservatives that are fighting this, don't want this to happen. You don't want a Royce White in the party. You don't want a David Penn. Dan Schultz sent me an email where somebody said I was revealed as a Democrat. Whoever said that, are you out of your saddle drunk mind? All you're doing is trying to discredit me by labeling me because you know I'm about the search for peace. And just like my mother, you want this moral universe that you can control that has no root to it, no faith to it. You don't want the peace movement to roll into the Republican Party, like the choice of J.D. Vance. I understand J.D. Vance, a very complex character. I understand Donald Trump is a very complex character. I'm a very simple man. All of its paths are paths of peace. If we don't have peace, the rest of it is irrelevant. Nothing will matter if we have a world war. Nothing will matter. And of course, Bob Marley's saying total destruction is the only solution. And now I'm in touch with why he said it. Because we have $40 trillion of 401ks and IRAs. Half the country is invested in this system of war, which I played that piece about rat race at the beginning. That's what he was singing about, the rat race. We got the horse race. We got the human race. Oh, this is a rat race. A dog race? Comparing humans to dogs and horses? He didn't say that because he was some kind of animal rights person. He did that because he was devastated to look out and see the political violence filling the cities of Jamaica. And now we are devastated. I am devastated to see this violence. So this lone gunman, he's not existing solo. He's affected by every word, every deed, because there's that unseen world out there. That unseen world. How many people have this tremendous desire to do harm and mayhem to people they don't agree with? I didn't have it, as I said, to the people that I actually did harm to. I could never get to that point where I objectified my enemies. I couldn't do it. That's why I have post-traumatic stress disorder, I guess. I still suffer with the things that I did that were wrong. In my own estimation, where my life was called upon to do things that people got hurt. I'm not happy about it. And I redeem myself by working for the search for truth and by being involved in the restoration of my country's goodwill. And I look at these people, how they talk to each other, how they talk to me. And I know what Royce has done. Royce has just said, you're not going to be able to work with these people on X. They're demons. I'm going to attack them just the way they're attacking me. And I recognize this because I'll talk to people on X and I'll try to discourse with them. And as soon as I establish what I think is the seeds of a dialogue with them, they'll attack me like I'm just pond scum. So I'm to the point too. I had an interaction with the guy on X, and he was trying to mock me, and I embraced him, and he made fun of me because he thought I didn't realize he was mocking me. And I said, "Hey, partner, you must not know Tai Chi and know when your energy's been stolen from you. So it's very sophisticated out there if you want to do it. It's a game, right? It's a game without physical consequences. So I urge people to come to X to learn what the people are saying, and what the conservatives are saying is we're not changing this party. And I'm only concerned about one change right now: peace. We got to have peace. If we don't have peace, we're going to have problems. And we haven't had peace for a very long time. And this assassination thing has been going on since, let's see, I want to get this right. Andrew Jackson, I want to get the date right. I knew it was Jackson. The first attempted assassination of a United States president was on January 30th, 1835, when assassin Richard Lawrence tried to shoot him in the east portico of the Capitol. And guess what? Both of Lawrence's pistols misfired. Well, pistol technology being what it is, guns jam, they misfire. Also, two guns jammed and misfired. It's somewhat of a miracle, if you want to look at it that way. Would you remind me, there's a scene in Schindler's List where an inmate of the concentration camp is going to be executed for no other reason really than he was Jewish, but he allegedly did something wrong in his work responsibilities. And a German officer tried to shoot him in the back of the head, and his gun kept jamming. And eventually he got so pissed off about his gun jamming that he left the guy alive. They didn't kill him. It's a great scene. It's a scene of the depravity and the miraculous, if you want to look at things at miraculous. And I want to make sure we play that, okay? So we've been trying to kill presidents, we the people, because if we had governors on our behavior, and I'm bringing this up because when Andrew Jackson was president in 1835, we had a very religious culture in comparison today, and we had assassins. So, to say that this religious period, or relatively more religious period, was without violence, that's not correct. That's not correct. That's why my mother said we need a moral universe without religion. Okay, now we have to have synthesis. Thesis, please nobody get down on me for Hegelian dialectics. They work in all directions. We had religious violence. Now we have secular violence. Can we see that that doesn't work very well? And now move to a search for truth where we build in cultural mechanisms which makes violence not part of our life anymore? that it becomes truly a martial art instead of martial. Martial's not an art, right? If we'd watched President Trump's head being blown off like a piñata, that would not have looked very artistic. What we got was the scene that I put on the thumbnail for tonight's episode, which is going to be an iconic picture forever. It's just an iconic picture. That was art. So you could say President Trump, under pressure, knows how to be a great marketer because that is a picture. Wow. But we've been killing presidents. We've killed 4. We've injured 3. There's nothing exceptional about this. What would be exceptional, instead of what President Biden said about let's turn the heat down, we're not going to get anywhere turning the heat down. Heat's not coming down. What would be exceptional is looking at who is teaching our children, what they're teaching our children, and change that. And that's a cultural issue, which is walled off by a teachers union and by an education department. And we're going to talk about how things get walled off. They get walled off by judgments. Our teachers are so wonderful. There's a judgment. And there's a lot of wonderful teachers. My father was a teacher. So, if you're going to cut this up, put in the rest of it. Because there's a lot of wonderful teachers that dedicate their lives to the well-being of their students. And then the other 99% aren't that good at it, which is why I'm not teaching for a living in a university. I don't want to hang around with people like that because it's like putting on robes or vestments or getting a credentialization. If you've been cut off from the root of the search for truth and you've got that moral framework without the root, it's very easy to go wrong. And what's my evidence? I look around me. I know it's gone very wrong. Now, again, because we have so many people invested in the system. I was talking to my mom again. Interesting. She goes, not that many people have college degrees. That's not true. That's true in her mind because she's 85 years old. And I wasn't sure what the number was because I'm getting pretty long in the tooth. Because when I was college age, not that many people went to college. It was a big deal. But now, because the government's gotten involved and they're funding everybody's college experience, do you know 54% of the people have college degrees?
I actually would have expected more. I'm not
See?
I
Your
yeah,
generation's
it's
different.
my whole high school is built in the idea of it feeling like a college, and then we had from I think it was junior year until I was a senior, it was just like college days where colleges would come and advertise themselves and be a huge college fair. And yeah, college is huge.
Was the deal, right?
Yeah, it's
It's
huge.
part of the experience of growing up.
Yeah.
Not in my generation. We went to work, right? Most of us. But then I said to my mom, why are we talking about college degrees? College degree, you can wipe your ass with it. The whole thing is, as I've said, is a cover story for what's really going on in our universities, which is about creating PhDs, particularly in the sciences, because those people get incorporated into the military machine. Or they become lawyers or doctors. They become the technocrats that run the New World Order, which I'm going to play again coming up here soon. President Bush saying we've got a New World Order. There is a New World Order. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's right out in the open. So these people that become, PhDs, now they're something. And I said to my mom, why are we talking about these college degrees? How many people have PhDs? And that group, that's a very small group, 2 or 3%, and they're running everything. And those are the elites, and we're going to talk about that. What is an elite? Which, of course, my mother objected to that, no different than the JCRC did. We're getting there. Little bit news that matters. Well, here's some news that matters. Tonight is Tuesday night, the 16th. We're doing probably an extended podcast. Thank you for being here. I hope you're feeling well. Thursday night, we're not doing a podcast. Why? President Trump is going to address the RNC. It's the week of the Republican National Convention, and I'm going to watch it. I want everybody to watch it, Democrat or Republican, conservative or liberal. We need to know what's going on. So we're not going to have a podcast Thursday night. We're going to get back on track, but we're in this election season and there's a lot going on. As you know, I'm involved. So we're going to do the best we can as we work through this calendar. So we're going to be off Thursday night. We'll see you again next Tuesday. Thank you for being here. I want to thank Free People Radio. I want to thank Dan Schultz for everything he's done to get people involved in politics. And I'm watching Dan get more strident. Go find Dan and follow him on X. Support the people that are supporting the movement. That'd be like TireGet.com, which is deploying with completely new technology. You can call in. You're going to get the right price, the right service, and you're going to support this movement and this broadcast. You got to buy tires from someone. You might as well buy them from TireGet.com. TireGet.com. Everything you need for your vehicles when it comes to tires. Please go to the Free People Radio store. It's being engorged with more and more products. Please, you got to buy T-shirts. Got to buy a T-shirt. Our price is the same as going down to the local store. Please buy it from Free People. We'd appreciate it. We're trying to expand our programming. We need your support, and we thank you for doing it. That's News That Matters. News That Matters, really matters, is supporting the patriot economy. Finding those people and those businesses that believe as you do and giving your hard-earned dollars to them so that they will take that money and do something good with it. What we have to realize is we got a lot of people in this society that wish the citizens ill. Why are we funding those people with our money? Why would I share my energy? There's people out here that are watching me right now in this group. They're saboteurs, they're observers. I try not to respond to them unless they're overtly ugly because they're irrelevant, and I don't want to give them relevancy by sharing my energy. I think you're actually irrelevant, and the little bit of relevancy you might have is going down minute by minute because things are changing. Your political ideology has failed, and you're being moved off the stage and put into the ash bin of history. You don't want it to change because, like my mother said, she wants to maintain her belief in this godless moral universe. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It's like believing leeches are going to help your well-being. Hey, you shoot your best shot. Maybe leech therapy helped a few people. I don't know. But we've moved on to some better ideas. So conservatives that are so shocked by Amber Rose being there on the stage of the RNC, are they going, oh, the Republican Party has given up its economic principles. It's no longer a free trade party. Yes, that's correct. Free trade didn't work. Nothing's for free. It's a scam. When you label something free that has a very high cost, that's called marketing. And all the Republican Party is doing is now evolving because so many citizens are recognizing the cost associated with free trade. In other words, I pay for it and somebody wealthy gets wealthier. What the hell is that? You know what? I'd rather buy a hammer for $20. That works. Have you ever used a hammer that you bought for $8 and you hit something with it and the head of that hammer came zinging back at your face at high speed and only because you had reflexes, you didn't go to... Have you ever had a hammer break that we're using? That's happened to you, hasn't it?
No, it's just I'm laughing at how specific of a situation this is. I've never had that happen, no,
Well, let me
but
tell you, I
my
have.
my dad was a carpenter, so I had access to good tools when I was
There's a
younger.
difference between good tools and cheap tools, isn't there?
100%, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, great. We need to build good tools. We need to have good American citizens build good things for our good people so that we can self-govern and be interdependent. Globalization is different than globalism. We can have interdependence and globalization. What we can't have is interdependence and globalism, because globalism is a philosophy of making people dependent on the system. Globalization is just the integration of markets. That's not a political comment at the level of globalism. It is a political comment, but it's been co-opted by globalism. These are things we need to talk about. Another thing, in talking to my mom, she goes, "You can't put the toothpaste back into the tube." I go, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "Globalization." Yeah, you can't. But globalism is a political ideology. And in this country, globalism is the UNIPARTY. I'm not blaming it on the Democrats. Now, 100% almost the Democrat Party right now today is a globalism party. They got some left-wing fringe nationalists, which they label as kooks. The Republican Party is now transforming into a nationalist party, and the conservatives are going crazy. Their heads are blown off their shoulders. Amber Rose is on the stage. Oh my God. Bryce White swears. What is this? This is the Joe Frazier campaign. He's a anti-Semite, a wife beater, a deadbeat dad, and a Black Lives activist criminal. None of those things are true. They're just broad brushing them because people don't pay attention or get into the depths of things. And they just, oh, he's a wife beater. I'm not voting for him. No, he's not a wife beater. That's a lie. Any more than Amber Rose, when she stands on that stage and says, "Thank you to my dad, and I've become a conservative because I realized what I was believing is not true." We're going to stop her somehow from that testimony? I testify that suddenly I believe in republicanism, and that is going to be a discreditor? Okay, people, you're telling me who you are. And here's what I'm getting from it. Now, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just going to tell you what I get about it. Boomers, these conservatives, boomers. Hey, you know what? Conservatism. It's political conservatism. We gave that up for social liberalism. Actually, it was political liberalism. That's what republicanism is. Excuse me. We added in the social liberalism. We, the boomers, we did everything. We didn't deny ourselves anything. In fact, we made it good. We said, it's good. It's good. And we'd sit around and laugh. How many girls have you slept with? Oh, I don't know. I lost count. Oh, great job. How many drugs have you done? More than you. I can maintain. I'm never going to get tired. We can stay high all night. I am going to tell you something. I know the people that are watching this are going to say, "Oh, Professor Penn, you're admitting it." You want to know something? It's up to you to admit what you did. Don't worry about what I did. That's irrelevant. I don't project my guilt for what I've done onto other people so I can feel good about myself. I'm working on the log in my own eye. I'm not interested in feeling good by labeling Amber Rose a sex worker, which I see all over the conservative movement. Or saying, "Oh, what's happened to my party? It's no longer a free trade party. Its economic principles have changed." Yes, they have. Why? Because it's not working. And if it's working for you and you think, "Oh my God," because that's what it really is, right? "I'm still getting the benefits of it. Please don't tip over my dog bowl." Well, that's called being a narcissist, which is the opposite of being a Republican. Yes, I said that. Republicanism is about loving your neighbor as you wish to be loved yourself. That's the essence of it. That's the essence of it. It's caring about our community. It's setting up the conditions of protecting minority rights. So if I'm pursuing an economic strategy that destroys the rights, and what are the fundamental rights? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If my economic choices destroy that, I have to look at myself and say, I don't care. And then when you do that, you're a Democrat because you really don't care. You really don't care. We are a spiritual movement about human well-being and human freedom. And to be well, I have to care about my neighbors. So we have to rebalance some of our trade and economic policies so that there's a better, wider base of support for what our country is doing economically. Now, that's news that matters. And the conservatives are getting very upset about it. My party is changing. Well, no, that's correct. And you don't want to change with it. And I watched, like in my own delegation from Minnesota, they're 100% behind President Trump. That is a lie, okay? They're not. I know these people. They're not. They spoke against President Trump right to me personally. So I know they're lying. Okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tell the truth, what I really believe. And I believe we're a people's movement, and the people are coming, and these leaders are not the center of my universe. The center of my universe is my neighborhood. And if we did that all over the country, we wouldn't have as many problems of this net. We'd have different problems. We wouldn't have these problems. And what are the problems today? Well, okay. So the president has now said he's going to nominate J.D. Vance as his. He's picked J.D. Vance as his vice presidential candidate, his ticket member in this election cycle. I don't know much about Vance. I'm going to research him, but I know he's against the war in the Ukraine. And as I said earlier, I'm a little bit of a one-issue voter because I know that if we allow this to go on and there's a world war, all the other issues of my interest will be irrelevant. Or as Bob Marley's saying, total destruction will be the solution. And I want to try to work against total destruction because I want to save my own ass, my children's asses, and all the people that I know from that kind of an event will not be fun. And we're going right towards it. Here's NATO. NATO, at its last week's conference in the United States, had unprecedented direct language about China, calling China the decisive enabler of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and that China now poses a systemic challenge to Euro-Atlantic security. So, just as we break into camps politically within the country, NATO is now advancing the argument that China is the enabler, the decisive enabler. In other words, China is the linchpin, to use a word we're going to talk about soon, the linchpin of those that seek to oppose we the people. 75th anniversary of NATO's founding, and there's now 32 members, which is twice what there was when it was founded. Quote, we call on the People's Republic of China as a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council with a particular responsibility to uphold the purposes and principles of the United Nations Charter, to cease all material and all political support to Russia's war effort. The PRC cannot enable the largest war in Europe in recent history without this negatively impacting its interests and reputation. Well, that's very strong words, never happened before. It's a first. And of course, China, not surprisingly, responded quite angrily. Quote, China absolutely does not accept the groundless accusations made at the recent NATO organization meeting in Washington. This is according to China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi. Quote, NATO should stay within its bounds and refrain from interfering in Asian Pacific affairs or China's internal affairs and from challenging China's legitimate rights and interests. The China-related paragraphs are provocative with obvious lies and smears. We firmly reject and deplore these accusations and have lodged serious representations with NATO. NATO should not become the disruptor of peace and stability in the Asia Pacific or a tool used by certain powers to maintain hegemony. So there's two street corners. Our conservatives are certainly on a street corner, and about half the Republican Party and growing are on a different street corner, and the smear on those folks are they're racists, they're anti-Semites, and they're Putin puppets. And we're going to get to that. In Israel, in the middle of this war, the government there approved 5,300 new homes in the West Bank. These are called settlement homes because this is the annexation of territory in the Palestinian areas, and these new homes are being put there with the sole intent and purpose of preventing the creation of a Palestinian state. So, you're going to have to think about that any way you want to. If there's not going to be a Palestinian state, there's not going to be a solution other than genocide. So if we're not going to have a political solution, and that would be the establishment of a Palestinian legitimate sovereign state, if that's off the table, then somebody's going to win and somebody's going to lose. And as of this last week, the Gaza Health Ministry said that the total number of Palestinians killed in the Gaza campaign has climbed past 38,000. So this is, right now a zero-sum game. Netanyahu had originally demanded that Israel maintain control of the Gaza-Egypt border, the claim or the presumption being that arms would be smuggled across that border in underground tunnels. It's called the Philadelphia Corridor. Just as I was coming on air, it was also announced that Netanyahu is softening his stance because this is a deal breaker. If the Israeli military is going to stay on the Egyptian border, the Egyptians were getting a little bit threatened, and they were getting ready to come into the conflict on the Gazan side, on the Palestinian side. So I'm not in the room, but I do see that there was a bid made for the Israelis to keep control of Gaza right onto the Egyptian border. That's been demilitarized since the solution that Begin and Sadat put into place so many years ago, which led to Sadat's assassination. And now Netanyahu's backing off because there's a lot of pressure being put on him to reach a solution to this problem, because if no solution is found soon, the war is going to spread. The U.S. also ruled out, since I saw you last, talking with Iran's new allegedly more moderate president. We're not talking? Okay, what's the purpose of that? Why would the Democrats, who have the mantle of being the pro-peace party traditionally, not be willing to talk? What is that? What does it cost us we're not even going to talk to these people? And I thought that there was so much criticism for Trump pulling out of the JCPOA, the nuclear agreement that was governing Iran relations with the rest. I mean, he pulled out, everybody went crazy. I'm talking about not everybody. The left went crazy. Oh my God, we had a good agreement. Now we got a reformist president, and the Biden administration has announced they won't even talk to the guy. What's that? I don't get this. Yes, I do get it, because the Democrat Party is the globalist party. The Republican Party is also globalist, about half of it. It's a uniparty, and that uniparty is maintaining $2 trillion for the military machine and $2 trillion for the medical machine. That's $4 trillion bucks. What's the profit on that? 40%? 1.6 trillion a year? That's what's holding the market up. We're in this system, this slavery, drugs, and piracy system, which is progressively, negatively impacting more and more citizens. The president of India, Modi, Prime Minister Modi, met with Russian President Vladimir Putin at his residence in Novo Argavoyo. Let me try it again. I should be able to do this. Novo Ogaryovo, near Moscow. That's where he's got one of his residences. And they talked about peace. And Modi's being roundly criticized. Zelensky blasted the Indian leader's visit. So did our State Department. They raised concerns about the relationship between India and Russia. Well, hey, guess what, State Department? India was a colonized country. Russia was a colonized country. They have common ground. in being colonized by the West. And Modi wants to talk. And he spoke with Putin about peace in the Ukraine. And he said he was encouraged by what he heard. We have to have dialogue. We have to talk. We have to talk respectfully. Because when we're not talking, guess what's happening? The F-16 fighters, which we talked about, that were promised to the Ukraine 8-9 months ago, hey, they're being deployed. The pilots have been trained in the United States. 80 F-16 aircraft are being deployed as we speak. According to our Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, the program has been 1 year in the making, which has included training Ukrainian pilots at sites on U.S. soil and in Europe. Those jets will be flying in the skies of Ukraine this summer, he said, to make sure that Ukraine can continue to effectively defend itself against Russian aggression. Well, we're going up the threat ladder. And, there's there's no holding back on it. The United States announced that it's going to deploy previously banned nuclear-capable missiles to Germany. There was something called the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Agreement, the INF agreement, which limited the deployment of such weapons. President Trump took us out of this agreement. Peace through strength, I guess. And now they're going to deploy these intermediate range nuclear capable missiles in Germany. This is called increasing the threat level. NATO repeated its vague promise to the Ukraine of becoming a NATO member. Up the threat ladder we go. All the news is about increasing the threat. Here's another one. The new top U.S. envoy in Taiwan vows strong military support. This guy's name is Green, and he released a statement. First of all, and the most important thing, the U.S. will strongly support Taiwan's self-defense capabilities. We have both common and long-term interests in peace and stability over the Taiwan Strait. So let's arm them. I'm sure that contributes to peace. Japan and the Philippines signed a new military alliance aimed against China. I'm sure that's going to increase the likelihood of peace. So we have this idea that peace through strength. And it may work in the short term. In the long term, it's not going to work. It's never worked in the history of the humanity. So why are we thinking it's going to work now? The people that are running it don't think it's going to work. They're just getting ridiculously wealthy. And I want to remind you, if the really happens, they're going to bunkers. They will survive. I and my family and I, we're not going to survive. Or if we do survive, it'll be with great skill, cunning, and killing. So this is not a happy thing that's being set up here. At the RNC, a new set of policy goals are being rolled out. This is the new platform of the RNC. I'm going to read this. There's 20 policy goals. This is what it is. Seal the border and stop the migrant invasion, number one, because it's a nationalist movement. If you don't have borders, you don't have a country. 2, carry out the largest deportation operation in American history. End inflation and make America affordable again. Number 4, make America the dominant energy producer in the world by far. Number 5, stop outsourcing and return the United States into a manufacturing superpower. That gets some of the conservatives involved in globalization a little bit fired up. Number 6, large tax cuts for workers and no tax on tips. Number 7, defend our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and our fundamental freedoms, including freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and the right to keep and bear arms. 8, prevent World War III, restore peace in Europe and in the Middle East. and build a great Iron Dome missile defense and shield over our entire country, all made in America. Number 9, and the weaponization of government against the American people. Number 10, stop the migrant crime epidemic, demolish the foreign drug cartels, crush gang violence, and lock up violent offenders. Number 11, rebuild our cities, including Washington, D.C., making them safe, clean, and beautiful again. Number 12, strengthen and modernize our military, making it without question the strongest and most powerful in the world. Number 13, keep the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. That's going to involve the debt. 14, and I watched the conservatives saying there's nothing in there about fiscal conservatism. You know what? When you write keep the US dollar as the world's reserve currency, that takes it to the next level. I have to ask myself, are you people dumb? Yeah, I'm sure that's going to get up there. I know you're not dumb. I want you to read number 13. Keep the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. Why would we have any conversation about the Republican Party has given up its fiscal conservative stance? If we're not fiscally conservative, we're not going to have the dollar as the reserve currency. This is actually quite eloquent the way this was written. It gets to the heart of the issue. It doesn't tinker around with the symptoms. Because the people that are pushing this debt narrative and this debt ceiling issue, like House Majority Whip Tom Emmer with the debt ceiling expansion, these people are globalists to the maximum. They don't care if the dollar is the world reserve currency or they'd balance the budget. It's just obvious, right? Fight for and protect Social Security and Medicare with no cuts, including no changes to the retirement age. Again, a fiscally conservative message, because if we don't get this done, this is going away, along with the world reserve currency status. Oh, here comes number 15. How are we going to get there? Cancel the electronic vehicle mandate and cut costly and burdensome regulations. Oh, the long con is at risk here. Number 16, cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, radical gender ideology, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content on our children. Oh, I bet that's going to change the university system overnight. I kept saying, how are we going to change the university system? Number 16, cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, radical gender ideology, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content on our children. Well, that's a big change.
I want to add to that real quick. While I was in college, and I didn't realize this until after the fact,
Yeah.
I was required to take a class called World Globalization, and that's where I learned the terms microaggressions, where I learned cultural appropriation, and the whole class was pretty much look how cool the rest of the world is and how we need to do this in America. America sucks. That is how the teacher led it the whole time. So I am all for number 16 because that
That,
was the most BS class I was in.
that's cultural Marxism. Okay, 17, keep men out of women's sports. Now, let me just comment about how important this one is. Okay, there's all kinds of things you can work on if you're in the UNIPARTY, because, the UNIPARTY doesn't believe in God. It wraps itself in the cloth of faith, but it doesn't believe in God. It believes in money, $4 trillion a year to the military and the medical. That's what it's there for. Keep men out of women's sports. You can say, okay, like my mother, we want to have a moral universe without religion. Okay, there's the natural way. When you get far enough from the natural way, and science can take us pretty far down that road in our own arrogant, rational mind, you go far enough down that road, that natural way will snap you back like a bungee cord. So the platform is just saying, let's not get so far from the natural way that we have to have a snapback. 18, deport pro-Hamas radicals and make our colleges, campuses safe and patriotic again. Well, they're getting ready to work on the source of the problem. Professor Penn might go back and actually become a Professor Penn under those circumstances. 19, secure our elections, including same-day voting, voter identification, paper ballots, and proof of citizenship. 20, unite our country by bringing it to new and record levels of success. Conservatives are very upset about this new platform because it's going to overturn their dog bowl. And they're fighting back right here in the state of Minnesota, We've become ground zero for this fight, not the least reason of which being we're a leftist state on paper. Our local politics in Minnesota, it's Democrat, Democrat, Democrat. House, Senate, Governor, Democrat. So the Democrat, the globalists, have complete control of all the mechanisms of power. The Republican Party here in Minnesota has become the controlled opposition. Although we do have, because in the outstate areas, like in every other state in the country, the outstate, the metro area, the city is the center of globalism. It's the center of the power of the Democrat, of the globalists. And everybody that lives in the city are dependent on the government. You know, when you go down to the grocery store to buy your food, that's dependency. But you get outstate with the people that are living in the ag communities, they go out to their garden and they get their dinner. Different mindset. So in the outstate areas, it's very conservative relative to the metro city area. And we have 4 Republican Congress people here in Minnesota, the most prominent of which is Tom Emmer from CD6, was the House Majority Whip. It's an important role, number 3 in the House. Big shot, big guy, lots of power. And his politics is very prevalent here in Minnesota. He's the man. I mean, he's the man. And over in CD2, Congressional District 2, this citizens movement, of which I participate in, on its first ballot in CD2, much like in the state convention, on the first ballot, endorsed a man for Congress, Taylor Rahm, and it was a big deal. I mean, people were super excited about it. There was another contestant, Joe Tarab, who was an acolyte of Tom Emmer, and this guy had all of the, central casting. He's not a white man. He's an immigrant. He graduated from an elite university. He was military, JAG, and a federal prosecutor. He's an elite. Oh, we want that guy, a UNIPARTY poster child. UNIPARTY poster child, a created candidate. And the citizens rejected him, but they couldn't let that one go. So for whatever reason, and I don't know the reason because I wasn't in the room, the endorsed candidate, Taylor Rahm, resigned, gave up the fight. He gave up the fight this past weekend. And the citizens in CD2 have contacted me. They're appalled. They're troubled. Some want to give up, which, of course, is part of the deal. And I have one message for my fellow citizens in CD2. Taylor folded. Let him fold. I don't hate Taylor. I just know that he folded. Now, he may have folded for very good reasons. I don't know. This is like at the beginning with the lone gunman. I don't know all the facts. Something horrible may have happened in his personal life. Now, the story was he was promised a position in the Trump campaign. That's kind of indicting, like it looks like a quid pro quo, or it's better for the state of Minnesota if you don't go forward because Joe Tarab's a better candidate because Joe Tarab has all this money and you don't have as much money. And that's another thing. You people are going to figure this out. It's not about the money. The people are coming. when you're buying votes, you need a lot of money. When the people actually get involved, as Dan Schultz has been asking for over a decades, by getting involved in your local party, by becoming delegates, by forming your lists of 20 people, by pushing out content, by giving up the judgment that you can't talk about politics and religion and actually talking about it. Wow. Now we're into something when the people start coming. Hashtag the people are coming. Now we're talking. Now we're talking business. Now we're in business because we invest all this in our candidates and then they let us down. So to my fellow citizens in CD2 who contacted me like, Drew, man, I get it. There's a lot of unhappiness about this. But let's remember all things function for good. Let's remember that we're not depending on these elected officials. I'm choking up because I'm about to say it. It's about us. It's not about them. It's about us. It's about organizing every precinct in this state. What does that mean? It means we have to have our people active in every precinct, knocking on doors in every precinct. And when we've achieved that goal, those candidates will do what we ask them to do because they will be part of us. They will be us. They will be our elected representatives. Clearly, this man, for whatever reason, decided to do something else, and I'm letting him go, and I'm letting him go with blessings for good health and well-being. I'm not going to hate him because I don't know what they said to him. I don't know. I wasn't there. He's out. Joe Tayrab for me is out because, he's a hammer and that makes every problem a nail. He's out. And I don't have to vote for him because I'm in CD3. You and CD2 are going to have to figure out how to handle this. But one thing I can guarantee you, all of that energy that you put into that candidate, all of that work, all of those aspirations to change this state, to reject the UNIPARTY politics that's represented. And I can say this because Tareb is not an endorsed candidate. So as an officer of the party, you can't impugn me. He's just a candidate. He represents the UNIPARTY and everything the citizens of Minnesota that are in the freedom movement reject. They reject it. So how you deal with that as a citizen of CD2, that you're going to have to work through. But all that love, all that energy, the people are coming. Royce White is here to represent you, to represent your aspirations for peace, to represent your aspirations for social fairness when it comes to the money, to that platform of ideas. Please excuse me. I'm so shocked. I'm so shocked. Please, I'm so sorry. All of those issues Royce is representing. All 20 of them, because this is our movement. So please, we're going to come up to CD2. We're going to sit down with you. We're going to meet with you. We're going to listen to you. We're going to answer your questions. And let's take all of that energy. Let's not let it dissipate. Let's intensify it. And for all the citizens, these people are not going to give up. This is a political throwdown. So when President Biden says, let's turn down the heat, that's a fugazi. There's no heat being turned down. We're not ready for that. I looked on X the day after the thing was already crazy. So what we need to do is speak respectfully to each other. The change I seek, I try to model myself. I'm interested in the log in my own eye. I want to listen. I want to learn. I want to speak to you respectfully. And I want to find all the people that are on the search for truth. And for the people that are just not going to agree with me, I understand why someone like Royce is just no longer kidding around with you people. Because you're not interested in synthesis. You're interested in total victory. Okay. Well, hey, the people are coming. We got a new agenda. Conservatives are going to recognize real quick you don't fit in the Republican Party You have an opportunity to learn. I will come sit down with you. We can go through the history. Why did the party become like this? Maybe you're not keeping up with the philosophy, with the history. Why is this changing? And why would you get in the way of change? And for the people that are out there that have been truly chased, because there are Christian conservatives in Minnesota that have truly been on the Christian walk, and you're concerned, and I get it. Let us stay on our walk in the search for truth. I cannot legislate faith. I can only model it. And so I'm seeking to be a model in my own life and to affect the people that are around me based on what I believe. But I can't legislate these people into faith. It didn't work. So now we have to double down. I have to double down in how I'm acting in my own life. I went and I saw a great, famous, really a truly famous pastor over the weekend and listened to his sermon. And he used the word idiot. And he said, "Oh, Lord, help me. I don't want to use that word." Because he was talking about an issue and he became, human when he's trying to model a more intense commitment that he has for the search for truth. We fall down. I fall down minute by minute, but I'm going to get back up and keep searching for truth. So CD2, all things function for good. And then we have the recent, the most recent thing that I want to comment on as I wind up the podcast. And I'm taking a little bit of a break because what I'm going to talk about is not easy for me. And I am a Jewish American citizen, and I have deep ties with Judaism. And the Jewish Community Relations Council of Minnesota and the Dakotas came out this past week and wrote and released, as was reported over the weekend, Royce White, the GOP-endorsed candidate for Senate, has once again perpetuated tired and reprehensible anti-Semitic tropes of Jewish elites controlling the Federal Reserve. A self-described anti-Semite, the latest vile remarks from Mr. White follow earlier rhetoric from the aspiring United States Senator decrying the Jewish lobby, claims that Jews focus on the Holocaust to provide a victimization cover for their own corrupt practices, and the charge that Israel is the linchpin of the New World Order. These most recent and past comments from Mr. White demonstrably prove Ambassador Deborah Lipstadt's horseshoe theory that anti-Semitism has infected our political from both ends of the political spectrum. I'll read it again. Has infected our politics from both ends of the political spectrum. August 13th is the last day to vote in Minnesota's state primary elections. We hope that Republican voters and party leaders will strongly consider whether the habitual anti-Semitism of Mr. White which we unequivocally condemn, is something that can be looked past while deciding their party's standard bearer for the general election. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for creating the light and the dark. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for creating me in your image. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for making me an American. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for making me free. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for healing the blind. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for feeding the people. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for releasing the bound. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for raising up the downtrodden. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for creating the heavens and earth. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for providing for all my needs. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for directing my path. Blessed are you, God, and King of all worlds. Thank you for my American courage. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for crowning America with glory. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for restoring strength to the weary. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for sending your Son that I might be saved. Forgive me, my Father, for I have sinned. Pardon me, my King, for I have willfully transgressed. For you pardon and forgive. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds, who is gracious and ever willing to forgive. The JCRC is an organization of human beings, Jewish human beings. The president is a gentleman named John Peretz. The first vice president is J.C. Reuben Grals. Rhonda Schwald is the second vice president. Jason Devine is the treasurer. I don't even get this name. Dunlop is the secretary. Akli Lou? I can't read it. I'm so sorry. Judy Cook is the immediate past president. There's a whole bunch of board members. Gregory Aronson, Bob Aronson, Shai Avni, Gary Barron, Rabbi Zalman Ben Day, Julie Burton, Valerie Chazen, Michael Cohen, Richard Cohen, Brian Cook, Jeff Davidman, Judah Druck, Rabbi Ryan Dulkin, Jack Fitterman, John Goldfein, Julie Idlecope, Todd Johnson, Mark Kane, Phyllis Karasov, Robin Karen, Amy Kaufman, Susie Kaufman, Wendy Cobble, Elizabeth Lehman, Shirley Tramer Lerman, Elise Levine Less, Mayor Stephanie Broad Levine, Judy List, Sally Lorberbaum, Gil Mann, Jason Pellet, Renee Popkin, Stephen Rosenthal, Russ Rubin, Bob Rubinall, Jim Shaw, Alan Silver, Debbie Stillman, Howard Tarkaw, Amy Waldstein, Robin Washington, Rabbi Michael Werner. Your names are on the website. I'm reading it with an invitation because I certainly am not divorcing myself from the Jewish community. Those of you that actually pray in Hebrew know that the prayer that I just read is an adaptation of the morning prayer. If you don't know that, I'd be happy to sit down and pray it with you in Hebrew, because I read it every day. It's beautiful. It's chanted. It's been chanted for thousands of years. Maybe everybody on this list knows that I'm sharing with the general community an adaptation translated into English of a Jewish prayer. And I daven every day. My father went to yeshiva. My grandparents immigrated from the Ukraine. I was raised in a very religious home. So it's going to be hard for you to call me an anti-Semite, because I'm not. I have love for the people of Israel, which gets me called all kinds of mean names on X all the time. I know Royce White, and I want to meet with you. I'm inviting you. I read your names because it's a personal invitation, because I know you're going to hear about this. And I have met with your executive director, Mr. Hunnigs, personally before. And I'm going to ask to meet with you again, because I know Royce White well, and he is not an anti-Semite. He is not. In fact, I want to say to you all of you, because you're the leaders of the Jewish community, that Royce White has publicly proclaimed in front of me and in front of other Jews his unwavering support for Israel on every level, military, financial, and spiritual, for no reason other than the enemies of Israel are the enemies of the United States. So you're broad brushing a politician as an anti-Semite, which is the strongest possible condemnation. And for those of you who know my father, he wouldn't have done this without talking to him, because he was searching for truth. So I would be happy to meet with you or arrange a meeting. And when you actually sit down with Mr. White or sit down with me, I'd like to air this out because I'm a Jew of this local community, and I come out of a Democrat family, and I've said it, I voted Democrat for a very long time, and my parents were very involved in the liberal movement of this state. In fact, they were involved in making this state all Democrat. As I just said, my mother has not given up her belief in the secular humanism of a moral universe that does not include religion. My father went to the yeshiva, so they worked that out amongst themselves. I have no idea why my phone is speaking like this. I'm going to ignore it. Even when I turn it off, it makes sounds. Something happened to it. Back to the chase. Please excuse me. As a lover of Israel, of the Jewish people, I'm talking about the nation of Israel, not the nation state. A lover of Israel. The nation state of Israel is a different issue, which I'm not going to cover today. I'm talking about the Jewish people that are suffering real anti-Semitism. And you're looking at me, and I'm out here doing this political thing, and my life is at risk because of anti-Semitism. I'm threatened because I'm Jewish. I have encountered anti-Semitism in the Republican Party of Minnesota, virulent anti-Semitism. And I've said on this podcast, if you're an anti-Semite or a racist or a homophobe, get out of the Republican Party of Minnesota. Go join the American Nazi Party. It's right down the block, so we know who you are. My daughter, right now today, is a student at Columbia University in Bernard College. I know what's going on these campuses. Many of you have children, just like my daughter. Some of you might have children that have rejected Judaism. They've rejected Israel because of the secular humanist education that they've received at our best institutions right here in Minnesota, like Blake and Breck and the public schools. I know where your kids went to school. My kids went there, all 5 of them. My kids went to Talmud Torah. So I'm going to just say this. There's a problem now in the Democrat Party. We're all facing it. I'm talking to Jews in our community all the time. I want you to know there are a lot of Minnesota Jews that support Royce White, and there are a lot of Jews nationally that support Royce White because they know he's a faithful man. He is not opposed to the Jewish people. He's a supporter of the Jewish people. And so why did you broad brush him like that? Why did you label him like that without talking to him or coming to talk to me? So I'm going to oppose this and ask for community dialogue. But I'm going to cover a few of the issues. Number one, because Joe Frazier and his media team continuously say that Royce White is an anti-Semite, a wife beater, a deadbeat dad, and a Black Lives Matter activist because his media team says it, doesn't make it true. I want to remind you that Norm Coleman, one of our most important Jewish politicians here in Minnesota, in 2016, in his role at the JRC, came out viciously against Donald Trump. And Donald Trump has been painted as an anti-Semite, particularly because of the Charlottesville incident, when he said that there are good people on both sides. And I know there's people on this list of this organization that are virulently opposed to Trump and believe he is an anti-Semite. Yet he moved the Jewish embassy to Jerusalem. His son-in-law is an Orthodox Jew. His grandchildren are Jewish, but he's an anti-Semite. Doesn't that seem a little bit of a contradiction? Oh, and he's a racist. Yet Amber Rose just appeared at the RNC. And there's black men and women all over the country flocking to the conservative movement. Black people that Jews were in league with because of the civil rights movement. My father, Misha Penn, you know who he is or look it up. If you don't know who he is, you should know who he is. I don't like to use should statements. My father was in the streets in the 60s fighting for civil rights. Jewish people were part of that movement. Some of them were snakes. Some of them were righteous people. My father was a righteous man. He gave me that, and he gave me the courage to want to talk to you about this. We have black members of our community no longer willing to be Democrats. Why is that, Jewish people? Why are so many of our community, knowing that Ilhan Omar is leading a virulently anti-Semitic and anti-Israel movement? Now, I'm not saying she's anti-Semitic. That's for you to decide. And I don't know if the JCRC ever came out and condemned some of the things Ilhan Omar said or has ever made these kind of comments about her. And I asked that question. I'm going to go research it when I get done today. But I know that she has been branded as an anti-Semite, and I know she's in that squad, and that squad is very anti-Israel. And Jamal Bowman was just defeated, and he blamed his defeat on Jewish lobby money. So this is no longer a simple black and white issue. Probably the wrong metaphor to use. This is no longer a plus-minus issue. It's not binary. There is a horseshoe theory here. There is anti-Semitism on the right. That's awful. That's a threat to me personally because I'm in the streets. And there is anti-Semitism on the left because I saw it at my daughter's campus. And I was worried for her safety. And your children are in campuses, and you're worried for their safety. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Because the Democrat Party is becoming increasingly communist, and it's becoming increasingly anti-Semitic. And suddenly it's the Republican Party that's embracing. That embassy is in Jerusalem because of the Republican Party, not for the decades of Democrat presidents that could have put it there. They didn't do it. It was President Trump that created the Abraham Accords, which at least was a chance for peace. What's going on since President Biden was in office? Now, I'm not blaming him for it, but look at where we're at. Look at where we're at. And all of us are surrounded by the kind of virulent anti-Semitism that actually threatens our lives. And then to see my community condemn a man that I know is not an anti-Semite, please let me talk to you. And let me talk about a couple of things that we just cannot hide from. And we just can't hide from because you can't have it both ways. We just can't have it both ways. What was your comment? Aspiring United States Senator decrying the Jewish lobby. Okay, decrying the Jewish lobby. What is he decrying? He's a peace candidate. He's a peace candidate. I understand the desire to protect Israel, which he has overtly committed to. If anybody had taken the time to check or ask, he is absolutely on the record for defending Israel because the enemies of Israel are the enemies of the United States. Please meet with him and find out. But that lobby, what are we doing? Are we in on every war that the military-industrial complex dreams up for us? So afraid are we that the United States will abandon its security arrangements with Israel? Do we not live in a tradition that claims that all of our paths are paths of peace? Is that not the fundamental cornerstone of what we're doing here? Is that not what it is to be a Jew? To seek peace? To seek a world where there's no murder? And are we going to, as a community, when we see anti-Semitism on the left and the right, side with our fear about our abandonment and our trauma? And I can talk about trauma because I was born in the 50s. And if you're born in the 50s or 40s or 30s and you're in this organization, if you're older than me, you certainly know trauma more than me. My mother does. She was born right during the Holocaust. And I just talked to her about it last night. Her worldview about that. Her trauma is more intense than mine is. No, we need to talk. We cannot, as a community, support every war. So when our lobby There is a lobby. You can't have it both ways. We're saying that we don't like White because he claims that Israel's the linchpin of the New World Order. Well, you go look on YouTube where President George H.W. Bush talks about that there is a New World Order. And I'm going to play it here on the next podcast. Please come back. We have a lobby, AIPAC, as you know, that supports both sides of the aisle, the UNIPARTY. Who stands with Israel? Mike Johnson, Steve Scalise, and Tom Emmer. They stand with Hakeem Jeffries, Catherine Clark, and Pete Aguilar. This is right on AIPAC's website. So what are we doing? How can we be about paths for peace? All its paths are paths for peace, and all of our money is going into a uniparty where all of its paths lead to war. And what's the evidence? Look around us. Look around what we're doing as a country. Look what's going to happen to our children if this continues. Look at where the money is going. So to say that there's a Jewish lobby, that's not necessarily saying that that's an anti-Jewish statement. It's saying, where is this money going? This is a man who has defended Israel. He's just saying there has to be some limits in other venues. But what we're saying as a community is we're so afraid that Israel will be abandoned by the United States of America that whatever war is out there, we support it. But that's not what we said in the 1960s. When our movement, the Jewish people, led the anti-war movement against Vietnam, the Vietnam War, our people led that movement. Our people were roundly criticized for that. I'm so sorry. I got my phone turned off and it's still ringing, please. It's giving me a time to reboot. We led the anti-war movement because all of our Torah's book, our Torah, all of its paths are paths of peace. We're either a devotee of our religion or we are not. So for those of us that know that that prayer that I read, that I translated, is a Jewish prayer, and you read that prayer, then you know that our community is about peace and not about gossip, not about repeating gossip or a partial investigation. There is a lobby. It's very potent. There is a new world order, and we don't want to say that Israel is the linchpin of the order. Israel is the primary recipient of U.S. foreign aid. The primary recipient, hands down, even with the Ukraine war, almost $400 billion of direct foreign aid to Israel. We want Israel to get that foreign aid. We work for it. It's our aspiration. You can't have it both ways. You can't say we want it to be number one and then say it's not. It is the linchpin of our security infrastructure. Our entire mindset about this is we have to let the military do whatever it wants. We don't want Israel to be abandoned. We're afraid. That's my opinion. I know I'm afraid. Like you, if you're my age, I remember being in 1967 proud of the 67 Six-Day War. I remember it. I remember the pride. I go and pray. I love my people. I would love my people to get out of this trap that we're in, where we're willing now to say and do things in support of the Democrat Party's agenda, because most of us are still Democrats, I know. But every day, more and more Jews are leaving the Democrat Party because it's an anti-Israel party. And we need to get this straight. That party is going to continue to become more anti-Israel. Look at where it was 5 years ago and where it is today. Do you think that process is going to slow down? Look, as Tanner was just talking about his class, go read the textbooks, go read the papers that your college-age children are being asked to read and study. Israel, they are being taught, is a colonial settler enterprise, an apartheid state. They're not going to support it because they support our Constitution, and that's been turned into a pretzel for them. And we didn't raise them religious, did we? A lot of them have never been in a synagogue. They don't keep kosher. They don't know their tradition. And I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. I'm not saying it as a criticism. It's just a fact. I was raised by people that didn't speak English. Were you? I mean, really, people that prayed 3 times a day. Were you? Okay, I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm just saying that when you move into the future and you've lost your rut, where are your children going to be on this issue? We have Jewish children actively supporting the Palestinian cause, actively supporting the deconstruction of Israel. And that's coming out of the Democrat Party. That's sure not coming out of the Republican Party. So here's a candidate who at the convention told a group of Jewish people, and he'll tell you that he openly supports financially, militarily, and culturally and morally the Jewish people in the state of Israel, and you branded him an anti-Semite because of a couple of things you didn't like the linchpin of the New World Order. Well, New World Order, that's supposed to be a conspiracy theory, and it's not. All of you are intelligent. I will sit down. We will hold a seminar on the New World Order. They write everything down. Everybody in the New World Order has a PhD. Everything is well documented. There's 128 podcasts before this 129th one, if you just want to make it easy, because I talk about what was the old world order, what is the new world order, how was it developed, what is its philosophy, what is it trying to do, and what its major philosophy is. There's no God. There's no God, the new world order. That's the point. It's the flowering of science. It's the flowering of technology, of globalism. Globalism is a political ideology that stands on what? The rationality and intellect of mankind. It's not a Jewish ideology. Lord have mercy. I am going to turn this off. I'm getting some breaks so that I don't screw up. I'm sorry if this is offensive, but it needs to be said. Let us fix this together. There is a new world order. Israel is the centerpiece of that order because the world's entire security architecture depends on Israel and has since it was formed. You can't have it both ways. You can't say it's the most important thing in the world and it needs all of our money and our support, and it's not the center of things. It either is the center or it's not a center. Pick a side of the football and stay there. We can't say there's not a Jewish lobby because there is. It's the most effective lobby in Washington. 98% of the candidates AIPAC supports are reelected, and we're proud of it. It's the most effective and the most well-heeled lobby in the business. So we can't have it both ways. So it is not really making Royce an anti-Semite to talk about truths that we just don't want spoken of. He's not talking about it in an anti-Semitic way. He's talking about it in a historical, factual way. And if you don't want to search for truth, if we're going to brush the facts under the rug, then how is that got anything to do with Judaism? We're here to tell the truth. We are a light to all the nations, or at least that's what I was taught. I was taught tikkun olam, that we're here to finish the work of creation. How can we do it without the truth? How can a man be an anti-Semite when he's speaking the truth? Maybe it's truths we don't want to talk about, but we're not going to have the luxury of hiding. We're surrounded in a horseshoe of anti-Semitism. The only safety is telling the truth. That's our safety, is standing on the search for truth. That's our salvation. That's our redemption, is our faith. Not faithlessness, and certainly not lying. And then, Jewish elites. Well, there are Jewish people, and then it comes down to the word elite. And I just argued about that with my mother, who was in the Democratic Party for most of her life, and she would have been a federal judge if Al Gore had won in 2000. So my mom is an educated woman. She ran Smurls. You can look her up. She's old now, but many of you either know her or know people that know her. And I had this conversation with her just last night, and she doesn't like the word elite. And of course she doesn't like it because she's an elite. She's a law school graduate. She was a leader of the party. She worked in government. She's an elite. She just doesn't want to cop to it. Okay, Mom, fine. You're of the people. And I'm going to tell you, she's not. She's a very educated lawyer and a very ethical person, and she doesn't like the word elite. Well, if you've graduated from Harvard Law School or Columbia Law School, or you have a PhD, you are elite in this sense. An elite athlete plays in the NBA. I play basketball at the JCC. I'm not an elite basketball player. Royce White is an elite basketball player. It's not anti-Semitic to say a person is Jewish and an elite. In fact, when we're all sitting around the campfire by ourselves, we're really proud of our elite status. I know that because I've been there with you. So let's try to get on one side of the football or another. When we're together ourselves and the pressure that we all face to get educated, all of us pressured to get educated, to be elite. We were pressured by our parents and our grandparents to fulfill ourselves and to get college degrees and advanced degrees. And we've done it. And we hold jobs in law, in medicine, in government. And we're Jewish. Is that anti-Semitic? It's just the truth. Are we proud of Anthony Blinken? Yes. Is he Secretary of State? Yes. Is he Jewish? Yes. Is he a Jewish elite? Is a Secretary of State an elite? I say he is. He's a Jewish elite. Are there Catholic elites like Jerome Powell? Yes, there are Catholic elites. Are there black elites like Michelle and Barack Obama, Columbia Law School, University of Chicago? Yes, he's an elite. He's an elite. And he speaks beautifully and eloquently to the rest of us. So the use of words and how words are characterized, I get it. We're going to fight it. But let's not fight it on the wrong playing field. Let's get on the right playing field with Royce White. We need Royce White in Minnesota. He's a candidate who fundamentally is seeking peace and community. And he's open-minded and open-hearted. And I reject, as a Jewish man, the characterization without even a face-to-face sit-down. So I call for it. I ask you to think about it. I say these words without any inflammatory intent. I say them to start a dialogue. I would like to be involved. I've met with Mr. Honix previously. I'm happy to meet with him again. Anybody, and there'll be people that are going to take my podcast and cut out 15 seconds and make me look like a wacko. Or as they called me, bonkers. Great. Fantastic. Let's not let sound bites make someone an anti-Semite. Like when President Trump said, there are good people on both sides. Then they're still banging that around. Norm Coleman rejected Trump, and after Trump moved that embassy to Jerusalem, he embraced him. And I don't even think that's the best example. I think the best example would be for our community, our Jewish community here in Minnesota, to get to know what's going on in the Republican Party, which is now the peace movement in the home of freedom and the home of the support for the nation of Israel. And look at that Democrat Party, and the walls are closing in there. And they're going to close in every year. So you can wait till the last minute, like my grandparents did when they left the Ukraine. They waited till the last minute, and all their brothers and sisters were killed there. I know their names. Let us not wait till the last minute. Let us defend freedom and America and republicanism, not as a party, but as a philosophy that stands on our 5,700-year tradition. Let us invest in that, lest we lose everything we came here to America to enjoy. And that would be our life, our liberty, and our pursuit of happiness. We're going to go out just to emphasize this point. If you go right down to the end, there's a couple of very religious Jews in the music world. Their band is called Zusha, Zusha, and they do traditional religious music, but they've decided to make their Lubavitch. They've decided to make their Lubavitch outreach. These are the really religious, for those of you who are not Jewish, and thank you for letting me talk to my community. I hope you stayed with me because I know we went way over tonight. They did a beautiful song, and the point of the song is called Praying for Peace, Longing for Love. That's what it is to be Jewish, praying for peace and longing for love. The lyrics, for those of us that don't speak Hebrew, they're in Hebrew, I'm going to translate them. All of Israel, and they're not talking about the nation of Israel, they're talking about the descendants of Jacob. All of Israel, they have a share. They have a share in the next world to come. That'd be the world after the Messiah comes. Because some Jews still believe traditionally in Moshiach. The Hebrew word for Messiah is Moshiach. Those religious Jews, they believe in Moshiach, in the coming of a Redeemer to set the world right. All the descendants of Jacob, they have a share in that next world. All of Israel. And your people, they're singing. Those of you who are not descendants of Jacob, what is disparagingly called the Gentiles, the Goyim. You know that word Goyim? It's not a very nice word. The Goyim. These very religious artists say, your people, the Goyim, all are righteous. And your people also have a place in that world to come. This is a song I want to go out with because this is why I do these podcasts. The religious, the people I come from, and I realize things change, and I realize there's all kinds of clips of religious people saying the most awful things. These two guys have made a beautiful song talking about all people, the children of Jacob, and all people, even if you're not a direct descendant of Jacob. You're just a person. We all have a place in the world to come. Shall we embrace the search for truth and we pray for peace and long for love together? On that note, I'm going to go out. Remember, there's no podcast Thursday. I'll see you again, God willing, next Tuesday. This is a beautiful song. Thank you for letting me run over so long. Let's go out together after these very serious topics or something I find extraordinarily uplifting. Thank you very much.
Have a good night, everybody.
Call you so well. יש להם חלק, יש להם חלק, לוואי לא מבוא. Call you so well. יש להם חלק, יש להם חלק, לוואי לא מבוא. ויאמן, כולם צדיקים, כולם צדיקים, ויאמן, כולם צדיקים. Call you so well. יש להם חלק, יש להם חלק, לילה מבוא. Call you so well. יש להם חלק, יש להם חלק. יש להם חלק, יש להם חלק